Welcome to the Catch Up with Claire. I'm your host, Claire Hoon, and today we're catching up with me. We are kicking off the first episode of January 2026 with a solo episode. I have so many phenomenal guests lined up for you for the rest of this month and into February, but I wanted to pick up where we left off back in November with sort of a 6-week update of where we've been. So if you're new to the Catch Up with Claire, welcome. This is where I tell stories of womanhood, stories of my own. I talk to guests about their experience and stories of womanhood, and we have a good time with it. We talk about a broad range of topics. The mini-series that I released in the fall was all me having conversations with women in my life and their various experiences of womanhood. We're going to start with a solo episode today and updating you on what I've been up to the last 6 weeks. I know January is sort of a time of goal setting and prepping for the year ahead and plans and visions and mood boards and all the things. Let me tell you, I can't move on to 2026 until I get the last month of 2025 out of my brain. And I'm going to do that by dragging you through it with me. So in addition to hearing about the last month of the year for us, I want to talk about some of the funny little things that have happened since the miniseries was released. There were just a handful of things that sprang from each episode that I sort of wasn't expecting or, received feedback on and wanted to talk about here. And then if you follow me on my Instagram page, NYCFam5, about a week ago, I put up a question box on my stories, just sort of curious about what people might ask or if anyone would ask anything. And I surprisingly got some really great questions. I don't know why I'm surprised by that, because I put some up before, but I think they were more topic-specific question boxes. This one was just sort of, what do you want to know? What do you want to hear about? And so I'm going to answer some of those questions today as well. So let's start with backing us up to the beginning of December. I love the holidays. I especially love the holidays with the age my kids are at. I have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-month-old. And also, let me just go ahead and caveat, I love the magic of the holidays. I am in no way going to pretend it is easy. There's so much to do. There's so much work to prep all of the holiday magic that we experience as kids. I hope you experience as kids. I certainly experienced as a kid. When you're an adult and you realize you are the magic maker, the holidays definitely shift. That being said, I don't mind all of the work because I truly love seeing the joy through my children's eyes. And it feels like such a privilege living in New York this time of year of things I grew up seeing on TV or seeing in the movies. My kids get to experience it firsthand. Like I never take that for granted, and it feels really special being here this time of year. So we had a full action-packed December. Every year, go see the Rockettes. My son and I started doing that. This would have been our 5th year. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw that the morning of the day we had tickets, he woke up and had been vomiting all night and could no longer go. So that was a huge bummer. I kind of thought I would take him again. I was playing around with the idea, but honestly, he never brought it up again. I mean, he brought it up anecdotally of like, oh yeah, I didn't get to go this year, not in a I'm so upset way. And so I didn't end up taking him again, but my daughter and my mom and I went, had a great time. It was a little bit of a bummer that he couldn't be there. Like I think we felt his absence. And then we had planned a trip to Hawaii. My husband and I fell in love with Hawaii a few years back. And this was actually our 3rd time visiting as our family. It was our first family vacation as a family of 5. And it just is a place that feels so magical. I feel like if you've been, it's probably one of those, if you know, you know, but you land and something about aloha vibes are so real. Oahu is very tropical, and it really feels like a tropical oasis and paradise that you're in. And I was so looking forward to just landing, feeling the warmth, feeling the sunshine, and feeling like I got to exhale for the first time in a really long time. So backing up, we planned this vacation back in July, right before I was returning from my 16-week maternity leave. And I said to my husband, I really need to put something on the calendar to look forward to. Like, I know that the next 4.5, 5 months are going to be a lot. One, me going back to work. Two, the kids going back to school, adjusting our daughter, and I mean, honestly, myself, to going to daycare, the way that my work flows, sort of knowing the type of things I had to accomplish between August and the end of the year. And then also the holidays. Like, there was not an insignificant amount of things that we had going on. And I just needed something to get me through that. So we planned this vacation. We're so looking forward to it. I also have family that live in Oahu. And okay, also side note, when it comes to an island, do you say you're in it or are you on it? Like, are we in Oahu or are we on Oahu? I say on, but I have this debate with my husband because he's from Long Island, which is another island. I'm like, are we in Long Island or are we on Long Island? Maybe that's a dumb question, but someone will tell me the answer. Anyway, I have family that live in Oahu, and so it's also really nice to get to visit with them. But we had sort of a week worth of, I'll say, manageable activities. I'm not someone who can go on vacation blind. Like, I need a plan. I need something to wake up and be like, this is the thing that we're doing for today, so that if we then do that thing and spend the rest of the day butts in the sand or in the pool, I feel like we got out and we kind of did something. So we planned, kid-friendly hikes. We did a snorkeling trip. We had family pictures planned. We got there. And obviously I've been tracking the weather going into it, but because it's such a tropical ecosystem or environment, it usually rains every day. But it's the type of rain where it's raining while the sun is out, and in 20 minutes it's gone. That was not this experience. We were there for 8 days, and it rained all day for 8 days. And by the end of it, people kept saying to us, oh my gosh, like, this never happens in Waikiki. And we're like, well, it is happening. It very much is happening. Our family pictures had to be canceled. I will say the photographer was so great in working with us. They were originally scheduled for, I don't know, early in the week, Monday or Tuesday. And he reached out. He's like, hey, weather's not looking great. Let's push a day and see what happens. And like every day, we were basically like day by day seeing if it was going to work. And finally, by Friday, he's like, I'm just going to refund you guys. It's not going to work out. The weather isn't going to hold. And there was no 1 hour time slot the entire week where we could have been outside taking photos. Like, that's how much it rained. We had planned a snorkeling trip, and it was again scheduled for early in the week. And the first day they called us, it was like an 8 a.m. boat departure. And they called us at 7 a.m. They're like, hey, conditions are too rough. The rain's too heavy. We can't take you out. We need to cancel. You have the option to either cancel or reschedule. And I was like, let's reschedule to the last day of our trip, which was Friday, thinking it would give whatever weather system was working its way through time to pass. And so we get to Friday, and it's highly overcast, but we still go just because we were trying to make the most of it. We pull out of the dock, and it just starts torrential downpouring. And in retrospect, taking 3 small children out on a boat to snorkel after 7 days of heavy rainfall was just not a well thought out idea, because the water was not calm, like, at all. It was very choppy. We're sitting on the boat. My husband has the 2 older kids, like, pseudo on his lap across from me, and I have the baby on my lap. And I look up, and they're like, we're here, we're at the snorkeling spot. And the boat the whole time was going like this, like back and forth, back and forth. And it was like a slow ride out to the snorkeling spot, which like should have taken maybe like 15, 20 minutes. And it took us closer to like 35, 40 minutes just because the water was so rough. And I look up, and my husband is green. And I'm the type of person, if you're going to puke in front of me, I am going to puke back. Like, not by choice. That's just what happens. And so I couldn't look at him. And the boat stops and he exits his way to the back of the boat and pukes off the back. And it wasn't just him. I'd say 2/3 of the people on the boat, like there were, I don't know, 25 people, easily 15 people were throwing up on that boat. It was so rocky. And no one got in. I mean, my husband got in because that's where it was like stable. And my son, who had backup the first time we went to Oahu, we went snorkeling. In the last 5 minutes, he finally got brave enough. Granted, he was 4 at the time. He was 7 now. The last 5 minutes, he was like, okay, I'll do it. And he jumped in and he put his head down and he saw a bunch of sea turtles and was so excited about it that when we said we were going again, he's like, I really want to do the snorkeling again. I'm so excited. I want to see the turtles. And I believed him. And maybe things would have been different if the water and boat situation had been different and it was like calm weather. But like the whole time I was negotiating with him, like, we can go for a minute. Like, let's just get in and see what would happen. And he was just not having it. So I sat on the boat with my kids. My husband got in, and then we switched for like 15, 20 minutes. I got in. But it was the water was so churned. It was really, really hard to see. Like, even though it wasn't like murky or anything, but just the water was moving so quickly underneath us. It was really hard. But by that point, we were so desperate to like have a win from this vacation after everything getting canceled. Oh my gosh, I totally skipped over the hiking part. Okay. So we said we had planned a couple of manageable small hikes before we went. And we know our limits. We have 3 small children, but we also live in New York City. So we're like, the kids can walk. We can do manageable things. And we also want them to know, like, it's not just your vacation, it's our vacation too. We're going to do 80% of what you want to do on the days. So like 20% is ours. And that 20%, we don't have time to like work out or go to the gym. So we want to do a hike, and everything we had planned was manageable. Okay. When the weather started being bad, when the weather was bad and we had to cancel plans, we did on the spot research and I first found this 1 mile out and back. It was like a half mile out and then a half mile back, and a half mile in was a waterfall. And so we did this as our first like pivot plan, and it was really muddy because it had been raining, but it was like the kind of mud that was fun. Like, we all got muddy, it was dirty. It was kind of like, let's make fun of how messy this is, because I don't know, I'm typically not a mess lover, but it was muddy in Hawaii and we were hiking. What could I expect? Kids loved it. So the next day, when it was raining again, my husband found, not to call him out, I'm just saying, he found this one. And I would have honestly done the exact same thing. He found a 1.3 mile hike called the Loop Trail. Now, when you hear Loop Trail, what do you immediately think? You think of a loop. You think it goes in a circle or a sphere or something that is continuous. And that if a loop trail is 1.3 miles, you think automatically it is a 1.3 mile loop. Let me tell you, it is not. The loop trail is one single line that goes point to point. So if you complete point A to point B, that is 1.3 miles. If you go point A to point B back to point A because you parked your car over by point A, that would be 2.6 miles. Now, if you were like us and looked on the hiking map and saw a loop, you would think you were doing a 1.3 mile loop. What we failed to fully pay attention to, and I had a quick thought in my brain when I saw this map, but I was like, no, that can't be. The way the map looked was it was 3 different trails. 2 of them kind of came together like a V, and then the loop trail went across the top to make like a bridge connecting the 2 high points of the V to connect it into a loop. Well, the full 3 trails that made a full loop was 3.5 miles. So let me just set the scene for you of 3 kids who had been dragged out to the muddy hike the day before. All they wanted to do was be in the pool and swim. And we were like, fine, whatever, we'll do that after we do this hike. Yesterday you loved it. There's no waterfall today. We still think this is going to be great. We're like, we did yesterday's really quickly. My husband and I were prepared. Like, we'll just walk, we'll carry kids if we need to. I had obviously had the baby in the baby carrier. We brought one single water bottle. We brought one teething wafer for the baby, and we brought all 5 of ourselves. That was it. Thinking maximum an hour. Big mistake. Huge. What's the Pretty Woman line? Huge. Big, bad mistake. We are climbing, I don't even know what, up. We are climbing up for 45 minutes, 50 minutes when we see our first group. And this is not like a cute little walk up the hill. This is like slippery branches, mud, sliding rocks, going up. My mother is probably dying if she's hearing this right now of what I took our kids through. Honestly, I was too. And we saw this other group and I'm like, oh, okay, they look like in good spirits. They must be like, I don't know, close to the end. And I wanted to be like, hey, how far to like a turnaround point? Like, how far to the end are we? But I didn't, because I was like, I'm not going to do that. I had also luckily been, or not luckily, tracking our distance on my watch. And I kept seeing, I was like, it was like getting like 0.8 of a mile, 0.9 of a mile. So I kept saying like, oh, we're getting close. We're getting close. But we had this whole time we're going up. And if it was in a loop, we should have been going in a circle. And in my brain, I'm like, we couldn't have fucked this up. Like, we did it, did we? Finally, we get to 1.3 miles and we see a trail map. And I look at the map and like, I know exactly what we did. And I see clear as day, the line, this point-to-point trail is called the Loop Trail. And I look very closely and see the name of the other 2 trails in Hawaiian that I cannot pronounce. And I was like, oh gosh, oh boy. And I give my husband a look and he like hasn't figured it out. But I can't say anything because my 3 kids are there. And not that the baby knows anything, but like if I was like, we're supposed to be done right now and we're 1/3, not even, because the other 2 trails were longer, of the way through this hike, there would be a revolt, but there was nowhere to go. And so in my brain, very quickly, I was like, we either have to keep going or we have to go back down what we just came up. And I was not, absolutely not going back down what we just came up. I was like, we're powering through. It probably took my husband like 10 to 15 more minutes because I kept like looking back at him and he just gave me a look and a nod. And I was like, yeah, no, we're fucked. And the whole time my son knew I was tracking it. And so I stopped calling out like, oh, we're close. Oh, we're close. We're going to be like turning here soon. Luckily, we had turned onto the loop trail. And finally, he just stopped asking. And I don't know what, like, kudos to him, because being 7 years old, he was, are we there yet? Are we almost there? How much longer? And finally, we just had to start getting into playing games of like, tell us about the Knicks. Tell us about football. Tell us about like, and it took his mind off of it. This seemingly 1.3 mile hike that we thought we'd be done in under an hour with our 1 water bottle and 1 teething wafer turned into just shy of 4 hours with no food. We had the teething wafer for the baby. Thank God I'm still breastfeeding. We pulled over so that I could feed her. It was, I don't have words for what it was. And at one point, I totally get wanting to like make the best of a bad situation. But when you have a baby strapped to your body, screaming for 40 minutes, trying to maintain your calm while your other kid is, are we there yet? What's going on? When are we going to be there? And your husband is carrying your middle child because she refuses to walk any further through the mud. You're lost. You are so thirsty. You have no food. No, I was not having a good time. I was not having a good time. And I did let it get to me for a second, for longer than a second. But my husband was like, I mean, isn't this beautiful? And I was like, where are you? What do you mean, isn't this beautiful? In retrospect, yes, it was beautiful. And I took a couple of videos and I took a couple pictures while we had pulled over to be like, I don't know, one day this will be funny. I don't think I'm laughing about it yet. I have different perspective. But it was just the sort of like, no, this is not beautiful. This is not funny yet. I'm still like, are we getting out? And like, I questioned that. I mean, yeah, we were getting out, but it was one of those moments where it was like when it's just you or you and your husband or you and your partner and a friend, it's a lot easier to like laugh it off. I have never been in a situation like this with our kids. I was definitely scared. But you have to keep your poker face. You can't let your kids know. It was a very stressful. And then the best part, okay, one semi-saving grace is it was full jungle. So like the canopy of the trees was over us. There were parts where we could feel some of the rain, but we were mostly pretty protected being under the trees. We get out and we are so muddy. My husband also like was holding my daughter at one point and like slid on his butt when we were going back down. And I was like, oh my God, you can't leave me with the other two kids. We get out of the trail and it is torrential downpouring. So we have to like walk, I don't know, 2 football fields from the end of the trail to our car. The baby is again screaming. There's nowhere to go. So we end soaking wet. And by the time we get to our car, like the rain had passed. It was just such an experience. Anyway, I will be going back to Hawaii. I will be bringing my kids back to Hawaii. I just am struggling with, I never feel like I got the exhale that I was looking for. And traveling the week before Christmas is a bold move, but I felt like I could do it because I was going to be come back in this blissed out, like we just made memories. We just had fun. We just had a week in the sun and avoided a New York City snowstorm, which like I stand by. I will absolutely take the rain in Hawaii over a snowstorm in New York City any single day. That is absolutely true. But I thought I was going to be like so blissed out and just high on life from all of coming back that the sprint to get Christmas ready would kind of feel like very worth it. But like in my head the whole time, I was like, well, it's raining here and I'm staying in a hotel room with a napping baby. I could be in New York wrapping presents or putting recipes together or grocery shopping or chopping or making cookies, like all the things that you have to do. So I felt very fidgety, I guess is the word. But we made it. It was it was an experience. I feel like that is just like sums up traveling with kids. Like you truly are not on vacation. You are on a trip. My husband feels, I think, a little bit turned off from traveling with kids. I feel like I'm not ready to concede yet on traveling with kids. We love to travel. I like taking them places. I feel like I wish I had prepared differently or better for a rain scenario, or like, how could I have salvaged this better or differently? Um, yeah, traveling with kids, man, it's a lot. Little did I know, though, the rain in Waikiki was the least of my problems because we landed back in New York, and on December 23rd, I realized I did not buy my baby one single Christmas present. That's right, not one single Christmas present. I called my mother-in-law in a panic because she drives next to a Marshalls and TJ Maxx and like all the shops on the way to school. She's a teacher. And I was like, help. I need anything. I need absolutely anything for the baby to be able, like, she needs presents for Christmas. Like, she's a baby. She doesn't need anything, but the kids, obviously, like, they were good and Santa was bringing them gifts. And so the baby was also the good, also arguably the most good. And so I felt like, I don't know, I was so exhausted of like, but like, where was my brain? I don't know where my brain was. Not one single present. It worked out fine. So we host both Christmas and Christmas Eve, which I enjoy, even though we live in the city and it's hard to imagine hosting families and having big gatherings, but we make it work. And I grew up in a large family and everybody we spent the holidays together. And those were always some of my best memories with all my cousins and everyone coming over. Right now, we're the only ones with kids. So, one, it makes sense because the kids can go to bed here. We can stay up later. Um, Everyone can be here. We don't have to worry about driving anywhere, traveling places. So, I do actually really enjoy having everyone in our home. And on Christmas Eve, we were clearing the table, getting ready to do the dishes to transition to dessert. And I was doing something with the baby, maybe like feeding her or getting her change for bed. Um, but when you can hear a scene happening, and I could like hear this happening in slow motion. I heard my husband open our kitchen cabinet and I heard things sort of fumbling and crash. I was like, you hear the glass shatter, you know that something is broken. I walk out. His hand is bleeding, glass is everywhere. He had the leftover meat and food, and there's glass shards there. And my husband is like, if he can avoid going to the hospital or urgent care or any medical setting, he is doing everything he can to avoid that. Like, bar none, he's not going. And I was like, do you need stitches? And he's like, I have to go to the ER. And I was like, fuck, that means it's bad. And it was bad. I will not, for those of you that have weak stomachs, I will not detail it, but he had to go to the ER, have the glass taken out, stitched up. But so, like, let me set that scene for you. It sounds bad for his hand, and I do feel bad about his hand. It's fine now. But here I am at 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I have 3 children who are wide awake and wired, 2 who are waiting for their dessert, 2 who are watching the Santa tracker on the TV, 1 who is a baby and needs to go to bed but is still on Hawaii time and so is absolutely wide awake. And then all of our family here, we are in the middle of having a great night, a great time, and vibe just like instantly switched. I was so overstimulated. We had like Christmas music playing, we had candles, we had our lights, our tree on, everything. I was like, turn it off, turn the lights on. Mood is over. We are getting down to business. I still had to wrap presents. We still had to clean up. We usually do a Christmas brunch. There was no Christmas brunch. I didn't make a single thing for Christmas brunch the next day. My husband got home at like 2 a.m., 2:30. We went to bed at like 3:30. And it was just like one of those moments of like, I don't know, you want to do those things together. Luckily, my in-laws were here. They were very, very everyone was very helpful in getting cleaned up, getting things situated, um, getting us ready for Christmas morning. But it was just like, oh my gosh, what next? I'll tell you what's next. After Christmas, every year in between Christmas and New Year's, my mom and sister and I do a girls' dinner. And so we went to dinner Sunday night down in the West Village, had some drinks before, went to a really cute Italian restaurant. I get a call from my husband, and our tree had fallen. I still have not even cried about this because I just don't even have the emotional capacity to do so. But I grew up where ornaments were like our thing as a family that we got marking an occasion. So ballet recital, family vacation, um, sports that you were into, every sort of, college graduation, high school graduation, every sort of occasion had a Christmas ornament tied to it. So my sister and I both have a collection from growing up that our mom gave us that we have now. And then I started that when I started buying my own ornaments when I was studying abroad in college. And then my husband and I, when we were dating, got our first ornament. We lived in New Orleans after we both graduated from college. And one weekend we did a sort of like getaway to Avery Island, which is where the hot sauce Tabasco plant is. And we have this really cute, it's red and green, so it's like already Christmas colors, Tabasco ornament. That one luckily survived. I was very excited about it. But it was the first ornament we ever bought as like a dating couple. And in my head, I was like, oh, we're real now. Like we share an ornament for a Christmas tree that we're going to get together this year. So I was really happy that that one survived. We had a ornament from the church we got married in, St. Francis of Assisi, that was gifted to us by a family friend. That one shattered. And I know all of these things are replaceable. It's just every year when we take it out, like even my son knows the Tabasco story now. And he was like, Mom, your Tabasco ornament survived. And so it's just like, I know we can create new memories. I know I could probably find all of these ones on the internet somewhere, but it was just like it felt like a gut punch of Christmas this season didn't feel like how I wanted it to feel. And now there's this very real physical sign of like, it all came crashing down, which you would think again would be the end of it. But we then were driving out to Long Island to celebrate Christmas with my husband's grandfather, rented a car because we don't own a car here in the city, and our tire blows off in the middle of the Long Island Expressway, which if you are not from the tri-state area, driving in New York is an experience in and of itself, but the driving on the Long Island Expressway is absolutely unhinged. Like, this many people should not be driving this fast ever. And this is when our tire decided to blow off. And I don't even own a car, so I don't know what to do other than call the rental car company, which took 3.5 hours to send our way while I had 3 kids and my parents in the car. I was looking on the Google map where we are. We pulled off to the side of the highway and there was a Costco a half mile away. And I just was like, I need a moment. I need some fresh air. I actually need a refill of peanut butter. And I'm going to buy everybody hot dogs because I know that you'll house a hot dog. And that's what I did. Which, like, was Costco less stressful than being in the car with my 3 kids and parents? I don't know. It was a very stressful Costco experience, but I got my peanut butter, so there's a win. It just has felt like one thing after another all season. And after the the tire blowing incident, I was like, you know what? I'm done trying. I am laying down my arms. I am rolling myself in to January 5th, and we're just going to start clean then. Maybe. It's now January 3rd. We'll see how I feel in 2 days. But it just has not felt like that exhale I was amping myself up for going into Hawaii. I still feel like I need to like relax my shoulders and unclench my jaw. And what's all the things that they tell you to do when you're like taking a deep breath? Because this holiday season has not been that. But like I said, we're all healthy. One thing, you know what? Look for the gratitude and you can find it. I am so grateful. We have not had flu A. We haven't had any flu. We have not had norovirus. I'm hoping that we don't get either of those things, but I know many people who have been very sick. So, hey, we have our health. I'll take it. Okay. Let's take a U-turn here and pivot to the mini series from October. November. I was working on it in October and it came out in November. I don't know what I was expecting from a response perspective, but it was so much fun connecting, 1, with all of the guests I had on, and 2, all of the people who listened. The feedback, I'm learning all of this podcasting business, and I started my Instagram back in July, which is very instant and rapid feedback. I mean, you're asking for 10 to 90 seconds of people's attention, and you either double tap your screen or leave a comment or DM to a story or don't. But the engagement is very quick. But then it moves on. Like something lives on the internet for like, I don't know, 48 hours. With podcasting, you're asking for someone's attention for 45 to 60 minutes. But when people are paying attention, they're more engaged. And so I I actually don't even know how to get a comment. I mean, I can like read Spotify comments, but I got so many people reaching out to me either through the Instagram page or via text or, hey, my friend said they listened to this and said this about it. And I can't tell you how much I love to hear that, because that was kind of the point of like connecting all of us. And so I want to go tell a couple stories about each episode that have happened since releasing it. I'm just going to go in order here with Charlotte's episode. So as I've been going through these, I've like been talking to my mom, and I've been like, oh, I'm talking to my friend Charlotte, and now my friend Charlotte is having twins, and oh, my friend Charlotte this and that. And she was like, okay. We were home visiting for Thanksgiving, and I had a DM about, hey, where did you get your daughter's pants? We need some for Charlotte's daughter. And I like clicked on the person's profile because I was like, who is this? And it was Charlotte's mom. And I was like, oh my gosh, hey, here's where I got them from. And she was like, by the way, this is Mimi. Tell your mom hi. We went to college together. I'm not sure if she remembers me. And I was like, Mom, do you know Mimi so-and-so? And she was like, oh my gosh, how do you know her? And I was like, it's Charlotte's mom. And she was like, who's Charlotte? I'm like, Charlotte, my friend Charlotte. And she was like, oh, from the podcast. I was like, yes, we went to college together. And she was like, and how does she know Mimi? I'm like, that's Charlotte's mom. And so it was this whole back and forth of like connecting. Obviously, we went to school together and our moms went to school together. And so then I obviously immediately texted Charlotte. And it was such a fun moment of like the degrees of separation are truly so small in this world when you start connecting these dots. Susie's episode, my husband was listening to it. And as I talked about in that episode, he's the chef of our household. He can cook most things. And when he heard her talking about, you just got to try, you just got to do these things. And I think she had mentioned some of her things that she either perfected or were go-tos for her. And he came to me and he's like, hey, I want to try making a pork tenderloin. And I was like, who am I to say no? I don't lift a finger to provide food for our family. Um, let's try it. I don't want to say it was bad. I think he would say it was bad. But again, like, who am I? I do nothing. It was not delicious. The confidence, though, that he had from that episode with Susie, where she was just like, oh, will you just try this and you just get better at it and just little things add up. And I was just like, and I was listening, I'm like, I'm bought in. I believe you. Our practice of that is a work in progress, where I don't know that I am ready to try pork tenderloin or be brave with that again. But we've decided that, like, we don't have to make the same variation of tacos every week. So, like, we're going to play around with different types of tacos, different taco seasonings, different taco meats, different taco toppings. That's like a variation on something we're comfortable with. And also, like, gonna try and spice it up a little bit. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll work our way up to pork tacos. Look at us. Again, I cannot take any credit for this because I do zero cooking. I'm looking at my notes here because, oh my gosh, the Shannon episode, I think being a millennial, I sort of am like a very big consumer of social media. I took for granted that everyone knows the whole Roman Empire thing. But again, when we were home for Thanksgiving, my family was talking and they were like, your episode where you guys were like playing a game, like, what is that called? And I was like, would you rather, or like this or that? And they're like, yeah, but like, why were you talking about it? And I was like, oh, because it was funny. And they're like, no, but like you were calling it something. And I was like, the Roman Empire? And they're like, yeah, what is that? And I was like, that's a good point. And so we talked about how this whole trend on social media, I don't even know when it was. Like, I feel like it was during the pandemic, but I feel like that's just sort of where I place things when I don't know what the timeline was, of everyone on social media just started talking about how men think about the Roman Empire all the time, or like multiple times a week, which feels like all the time when you're talking about thinking about the Roman Empire, because I can guarantee you, I have never once just proactively thought about the Roman Empire like that. that has never just occurred as a thought in my brain. But this game is absolutely my Roman Empire. So anyway, it was fun being like, what is the Roman Empire and why are we talking about it? Apparently it's a millennial thing. Who knew? But then also people were saying they also don't think about the Roman Empire. So does anyone actually really think about it? I don't know. You'll tell me. One that I also loved was the feedback around the episode with Steph. So many people reached out, both to me and when she was talking with me too, to her about, I think we have such a fear of the unknown, especially us city folk, a fear of the suburbs and kind of, I don't know if the word's validation, but yeah, it makes sense. If you're looking to start a community or to be part of a community, just start. Like what Steph was talking about and how she realized, like, no, I need to be part of a group here. I need to have friends here. I need to feel like I'm part of the community here because this is where we're building our lives. So many people really connected with that messaging and everything she had to say. I do think we'll have to bring her back on to talk about some baby updates and being a mom of two now. But I also, another one was in my, I was about to say my recipe with Alicia, because that's what my postpartum brain is doing to me these days. In my episode with Alicia, I had people reaching out about, I had no idea this was a thing. I had no idea this being pelvic floor physical therapy. And I think I take for granted how much I know as a third-time mom who's been through 3 pregnancies and childbirth and postpartums. But like thinking back on it, how would you know? I had no idea that that was a thing as a first-time mom. And I feel like it just leads to this whole disservice that we as women are given about our health. Like there is such a lack of education beyond the absolute basics, which, I mean, even the basics feel lacking at time in healthcare education. But again, why I'm so appreciative of providers like Alicia who really take the time to educate us on our bodies, on how we can best care for them. And so I was really, really glad to hear that someone learned something new and could actually use it and take from it, because how are you supposed to know if no one's talking to you about your pelvic floor, about the impacts it has on pregnancy, about, different symptoms you're experiencing postpartum, if you don't even know what questions to ask. So pay attention to your pelvic floor health. Your pelvic floor will thank you. So that was my little wrap up of my mini series and sort of the takeaways from it. Getting into the next series of episodes. Before I do, though, I really, again, want to thank my first few guests. They all sort of took a bet on me and were very vulnerable and open and willing to record episodes before I ever published anything. And I really think that that has shaped what I've been able to do. So even though I haven't been publishing episodes the last 6 weeks, I have been recording. So I have 5 episodes with guests recorded that are going to be rolling out weekly. And I have a whole lineup of interviews and guests scheduled now through February that I'm really excited about. I think what I'm most excited about is the range of guests and topics. And it's kind of something that I don't want to explain it, but I want to have space for here, is that there's nothing really off limits. Like the experiences of womanhood are so vast, and there's space for all of those experiences and all of those stories to exist at the Catch Up with Claire. If you want to talk about your experience, I want to talk about it with you, and I want to share that. So if you're still thinking about it and you want to be a guest and you have something to say, let's say it. All right. Now for the questions. So I put this story box up, again, not really knowing what to expect. There were 3 that I'm going to address here. A couple that I responded to because they were sort of like quick hit questions, but I think these are some topics that I can really dive into. So first one I'll read off here. Hard things about living in New York. My immediate reaction was the cost, because it's really expensive to live in New York City. But there's another question about budgeting, so I'll talk about the cost in a minute. I think something that I've I maybe hadn't identified previously or really until more recently, or didn't have a label for it. That's difficult for me, at least, about living in New York is this whole identity of being a transplant. Um, New York is a very transient place. I also think for us personally, living and raising a family in New York long term was never part of our plan. So we moved here for me to go to graduate school. It was a 2-year program, and we thought we'd be here for maybe 3 to 4 years tops, do sort of graduate school, and then a year or two after to enjoy New York City life, um, and then move to wherever we decided we were going to move to start a family, have a house, sort of do traditional things that you think about doing when you're starting a family. Um, and then I had a surprise pregnancy, and none of that happened, and we're still here. For me, being a transplant sort of comes with not really knowing my way around. And I've realized that through, like, I don't know the school system. I don't know sort of, I've learned it, but like things I didn't know. And it's very hard to learn if you don't know where to find the information or the right people to ask, because there is information overload when it comes to most things in New York, but especially schools. So learning about the public school system, how it works with districts and zoning, and where you can get a guaranteed seat versus where you can apply to get a seat, private schools, navigating, do we want to do private schools? How much is private school cost? I think also when it comes to community, we didn't have a built-in community. And I feel like for New York standards, I got pregnant when I was 25, which is like adolescence here, basically, because it's so expensive to raise a family. Many people wait until, they're well into their 30s to have children just because, again, it's so expensive. And so when I was having kids, none of my friends were even married yet. Certainly no one was having children. Um, and the women that I was meeting that had newborns around my baby's age were, 10 plus years older than me. And so we had a very different life perspective. And so I found myself having a really hard time. Where do I fit in? Where is this sort of village or community that people talk about? Like, I didn't feel like I had that. And there's a lot to that, but it's taken me until now and until more recently to realize, well, we're going to be staying here for the longer term. So I want to put the investment in building a community, building a village. It also helps now that our kids are school age. And so we've been able to get to know some of the parents in our kids' classes. But that's also hard of like our oldest son started school during the pandemic, and a lot of parenting and adult programming through the schools was canceled. And so then you're kind of like playing catch up. So I think definitely one thing about living in New York is having to put a lot of effort in, which I'm not saying it shouldn't be effort, but like I took for granted that, again, transplant identity. And I also think like born and raised New Yorkers are very protective of that identity, which I get. But New York is also a very transient place. Like people come and go and transplant themselves here. Now, if you are listening and you live in New York City, something hard living that you will understand maybe about living in New York City is you are never comfortable in your apartment. Let me tell you what I mean by that. If it is, there are two types of building, pre-war and post-war. Pre-war is like right around late 50s, early 60s. However, they built buildings before in the pre-war era was very different than what they do post. So like things like piping, things like central air conditioning, things like electricity are all built differently in the post-war buildings. So like things I absolutely took for granted growing up in the Midwest were things like that. Air conditioning, heat, lights throughout my whole apartment. Our first apartment didn't have overhead lights except for in the kitchen. I was out there putting lamps in every corner of our apartment to have lighting. When we renovated this apartment, we had to put overhead lighting in. So hard things about living in New York is not feeling comfortable. In the summer, it is sweltering hot in our apartment. We have in-wall air conditioning, but it never gets cool enough to be like, this is ice cold refreshing. We have radiator heat in our apartment, but it is never like, oh, I'm so cozy. Or if it is, like on really, really cold days, it's still actually cold in here because our windows are old and drafty. But when it's like 40, like low 40s and the heat is on, it's like a sauna. And so to counteract the radiator heat, even if you have them closed, you have to open a window. So like hard things about living in New York, not ever being comfortable in your apartment. And if you live in New York, you know, and if you don't, you're just going to have to take my word for it. Okay, next question. Do you ever talk about budgeting vacation, for example, vacations or having 3 kids in New York City? I haven't, but I can. I think obviously this is so variable to where you are in life and your own circumstances. I think something that took me a while to realize in New York, I don't know if it took me a while, but I think that some people don't recognize is it is New York City. Over 8 million people live here. There will always be people with more than you, and there will always be people with less than you. And there will always be people with significantly more than you and significantly less than you. And both people on that entire spectrum are figuring out ways to make it work. Like, I am sure there are people who make copious amounts more money than we do who feel stretched thin. And I'm sure there are people who make less than us and probably have better budgeting systems or wonder like, oh wow, that must be easier. I'm stuttering over my words. So I think it's an important perspective of like you never truly know someone's financial situation. And I think the most important thing we talk about, we being my husband and I, when it comes to budgeting, is like we have to live within our own means. So we always sort of pay ourselves first, being like obviously like our mortgage, our bills, our childcare. Savings is very important to us. So we have goals every year that we break down into monthly and what sort of savings we're going to put away if we can. And what sort of we're going to choose to pay for and what we're not. So within our budget, we can do one sort of supplemental activity per kid. So my daughter does gymnastics. Our son does basketball. My daughter used to do dance, and then she asked to switch. And then a couple weeks ago, she was like, can I do dance again? And I was like, you can, but you're going to have to stop doing gymnastics. And she was like, I want to do both. I'm like, well, we're going to choose an activity. So like within our means is one activity. It's expensive. Like I don't know. It's just really expensive. Um, we, as I said sort of earlier, despite the trip to Hawaii, we do enjoy vacations and traveling is important to us. So I would say we choose to spend our money more so on experiences that are on material goods. Um, so we try to have a family vacation, the 5 of us. Before there were 5 of us, the 4 of us. I didn't grow up here, and so we always have money budgeted for traveling back home to visit my parents, to visit my grandma, to spend time with my family. Um, I I think, oh, I wanted one thing I would talk about. So the nature of my job is I work in sales. A large portion of my income is commission based, which is not not steady every month. So I do have a base salary that I get biweekly. But most of my income is earned through commission. And the way that it works is like my highest earning months are over the summer. I've been doing this for 4 years now, but well, no, I've been doing it for 3 years because 4 years ago we got to the holiday period. It was our first year of having 2 kids, and it was like teachers' gifts and doorman's gifts and Christmas presents and hosting and food, and just the cost of everything at the end of the year felt very, very overwhelming. And I tried to figure out how to feel better prepared for that because even though the money was in our savings account, if I have a hard time taking from that. Like I want to pay from that based on what we're bringing in versus taking from our savings. Um, so 3 years ago, when I was in my high earning months in the summer, at the end of summer, usually like July, early August, I will take a portion of my commission and set it aside for the holidays. So I will go so far as like buying all the gift cards, taking out the cash for all of the gifts that we need to give that are cash based. Um, I'll start buying Christmas presents, or I'll at least make a list of what we're going to be buying. I will set aside money for Christmas dinners. Just so that I feel like I have a larger expense that comes at the end of the year paid for ahead of time, and when last minute expenses come up at the end of the year, which they always do, it doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. So that's one thing that I've tried to help of like everything feels like it adds up at the end of the year, and one way I can make it easier or feel easier is spacing out those expenses throughout the year. Okay, the other one is, do you talk about mom stuff or trying to conceive in 2026? I'm just going to go ahead and place a trigger warning here talking about pregnancy and trying to conceive. Um, to answer the first part of the question around mom stuff, there's so much mom stuff I want to talk about. Um, and I want to be cognizant of, I think a portion of this audience will be moms and curious about motherhood. And I think a portion of this audience either are not mothers or parents yet, and some that aren't even interested in that. So sometimes I think I maybe over rotate a little bit to the non-motherhood content and topic points because I want it to feel more broad. But the original name for this podcast was Give a Mom a Mic, because moms have so much to say. So yes, there's a lot of mom stuff I want to cover. I'll leave it at that. There is a lot of mom stuff I want to cover, and a lot of moms I'm talking to in 2026. Still a lot of non-moms too. Um, as for the trying to conceive, first of all, if this is you and something that you're struggling with, oh my gosh, does my heart go out to you. It's not something I ever experienced. As I mentioned, I had a surprise pregnancy as my first pregnancy. And that came with its own set of challenges and hardships. But my heart breaks for women who so desperately want a baby and are still working to get that baby. Um, for that reason, I want to be very respectful of the women in my life. Some of my closest friends are going through IVF, have been through multiple rounds. I'm so, so happy for the few that have gotten pregnant and are pregnant with their IVF babies, and some that have had their IVF babies. But I do want to be very respectful of women going through that. Is such a vulnerable period of life that you don't know that you're going to get the outcome you want when you're still going through it. I actually do one of my episodes that I've recorded and is coming out in the next couple of weeks is a secondary infertility journey. My friend Yelena is being very open about the challenges she's going through, so you'll hear about that in a few weeks. One of my friends has agreed to talk about her IVF journey. She's now pregnant. I think she feels comfortable talking about her journey and what she's been through and what the process has been like. So I do plan to have an episode on that later this spring coming out. If you're trying to conceive and you want a place to talk about what you're going through, what's helpful, what's not helpful, anything at all, I'd love to chat with you. I truly would. I feel very sensitive and I don't want to, I can imagine the emotion that you're going through, and I don't in any way want to add to that or create any type of additional emotion to attach to it. So if you're on a trying to conceive journey or you want to talk about your motherhood journey, please reach out. I'd be happy to chat with you about it. Okay. Those were the 3 questions I'm answering for this episode. Oh my gosh, 1 hour and 3 minutes. I can't believe I've been talking for that long. Are you still listening? If you are, thank you. One of my goals for this year, I have many goals for this podcast. A few are, 1, continuing to grow the audience. I think that I can do that by, first of all, making these higher quality. So I'm working with someone on the editing, which I'm excited about. I think that can help me scale just some of my bandwidth, but I want to have better intros and outros for you. I want to add a little like musical detail at the beginning or end to make it sort of flow, like professionalize it more. I want to have a more branded, like consistently branded look and feel to it. I also want to get better about creating the clips. I feel like I have a flow when I edit my Instagram reels, but I don't feel like that translates to how I've been editing the podcast teaser clips. So all of these are goals and more that I have for how I can get more listeners, make these more interesting. If you have feedback, let me asterisk that. If you have constructive feedback, I'm all ears. Please tell me. This is just a one-woman show right now that is looking to learn and make this as high quality and interesting as possible. So please share. Another goal is to grow on YouTube. I realized I had been publishing audio only to YouTube because I listen to these enough times when I edit. I don't have time to then go watch and listen on every platform. So thank you to the person that pointed that out to me. But I do want to grow my YouTube subscribers, which I can't believe those are words that just came out of my mouth. But overall, I want to continue to grow the audience. And the way that I can do that is if you engage with the podcast, if you rate it, if you download or follow whatever listening platform that you listen from, if you could follow along, that truly means so much to me. If you can give the episodes or the podcast overall a rating or a comment, I so appreciate that. I also would love engagement on the clips that I put out. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. That's a much easier, I think, back and forth mechanism to take the feedback. But I'm really excited about continuing to bring these episodes to you, and I hope you're excited to continue listen. Let's wrap it up. That is today's solo episode of The Catch Up with Claire. Until next time, be kind, be brave, and be safe out there.